welcome to Canceled. We are back on a gloomy, gray Austin afternoon at the wonderful Permanent Record Studios. We're back. We're talking Darkroom. My God, this show's terrible. Well, no, here's the thing. All right, Adam Hrabik's here. I liked some of it, and then I absolutely hated a fair amount.
I did not like. Once again, I hated the first episode.
I kind of liked the second part of the first. I kind of liked the weird soldier PTSD Mile A Massacre episode. That was way too dark.
I was so fucking bored, and that was so long.
It was very long. It was maybe the longest of them because the first episode, the first story of the first episode is by far the shortest that we've had yet. And the most right. We'll get to it in a second.
Oh my God.
How's things? What are you up to? How's things?
Oh, pretty good. We're about to go get ready for Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow.
Nice.
As soon as I get home.
Are you cooking?
Yeah, I'm cooking. It's just my girlfriend and I are going to just have dinner.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Got a smallish turkey.
There you go.
Kind of like 5 sides. You know, the usual.
Yeah, for 2 people.
But we want to have a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Of course, you got to do it up.
Yeah.
I ain't doing shit.
It's going to have a lot of leftovers.
Yeah, that's also good.
Yeah.
That's like half the part of Thanksgiving. I ain't doing shit. I'm working tomorrow, so whatever. It don't matter. That being said, actually, let's get into this fucking show because, all right. First off, I want to say I'm getting more into the James Coburn opening sequences in that I enjoy that he was clearly on set for maybe 2 days, like a day and a half. At most, he shot all of those back to back.
Oh yeah, that
just
was
drinking bourbon the whole time. Clearly, yeah.
And I wonder how many of those intros were left on the cutting room floor because they all seem so tenuously tied to the stories that
most of them are not tied at all.
Right.
Yeah.
So they probably just came up with like 20 ideas of creepy things vaguely to do with photography that James Coburn could say.
Yeah.
And we'll figure out how to tie them up to whatever these writers could come up with.
For sure. There was one, I think it's the second episode where he's talking like this, the first short story in the second episode where he's talking about like a camera gets lights in, gets in, the film is ruined or whatever, and then this. Let's get to the second episode. Get to that. Let's start with the first episode.
I do remember exactly what he said.
We'll get to that, but here's what I'd like to say before we get to that part. The first episode starts, and like you say, they have to come up with creepy things related to photography. Yeah. Sometimes not to do with photography at all. For instance, he just has a meat cleaver and some apples. Oh yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
You just see an apple on a cutting board and then a meat cleaver. Cuts it in two.
Yeah.
I want to go back a little bit before then because I noticed this in the title sequence. The camera zooms around the empty house, and then it pulls up to just outside of the dark room.
Right.
And it's red lit in the hallway. Like the dark room has the red lights.
Not the hallway.
Why does the hallway outside of it have a red light?
I did not notice that at all. I guess we're supposed to think maybe it's like creeping out of from underneath the door or whatever, but the whole point of a dark room is you don't let shit out, right?
It's
sealed. I did not even catch that. That's hilarious. But yeah, he goes in, it starts when he's like, this, people consider this a weapon as a meat cleaver. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess they would. He goes, because you can make applesauce out of anybody. I don't think that's how you make applesauce. I don't think you use a meat cleaver to make applesauce.
Right. He just cuts the apple in half and says, well, yeah, you can make applesauce out of that. I'm like, it's not any closer to applesauce than it was when it was whole.
You could chop an apple, I guess. Yeah, you cut it in half. That's not sauce at all. But he goes on to say...
You don't mince the apple with a knife.
No, that's not how applesauce is made. It's not knife-based, that process. But he takes that and he says something about some things people consider a weapon. You may not think or whatever, like this needle or a pin or whatever.
Pin, yeah.
And then this episode is called Needlepoint. And so you had messaged me, I hate this episode, but earlier before I started watching it, and I was like, I haven't watched it yet. I saw a black person, and I was like, dope, a black person. We haven't seen those yet.
Yeah,
and then,
have not.
I've not seen a black person. I think there was one in the bar. He didn't have any lines. I kind of recognize him from stuff. Like, I looked him up. He's been in a lot of things. He's been around a long time. He comes upon Esther Roll, and I'm like, oh, dope. She's a fucking great actress. And then I realized about 2 seconds in, he's just a pimp. And I was like, God damn it. And then I was like, God damn, he's going to be a pimp. And then it's also voodoo. My note says pimp and voodoo. God damn it. And it's 6 minutes long. It's the shortest one in the world.
This is your version of how Black History Month is the shortest month.
Yeah. This fucking episode. So he's a pimp to the point where when I went to the IMDb, their character names are young man /pimp and old woman / grandmother. Those are the characters' names. Melinda
those are beautiful names.
The only name, Melinda, the girl who's dead, who we don't meet, has a name. Our two characters we actually meet, young man / pimp, and old woman / grandmother.
I bet they also gave the dog a name.
They probably wouldn't be shocked. So you see this young black dude, and he's like walking. Also, it's the 70s, so there's no way to know who's young. Even like 16-year-olds in the 70s looked like they were 38. Yeah. They still all had thick mustaches. But he's like wearing he's like on like a country back road, but he's clearly dressed like from the city. He's like a suit and a gold chain or whatever. And he comes upon this old woman who's like sitting outside, and he's like, I came for help because I've been sick for 3 weeks, and it got really bad.
She's in this very True Detective like cabin in the swamp.
She's living in the swamp, but also like how. So we're dropped into this moment in the story of he's just on the street. We don't know how he got there or whatever, but he clearly came from a city. But like, what city is that close to this swamp? I guess it's just a weird the geography of it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's like Florida or New Orleans, maybe.
That's about it. Yeah. But also he's too New Orleans would work. I feel like Tampa. He doesn't have a Tampa vibe to him.
He does seem like he had been in the car 30 minutes, maybe.
Yeah. He hasn't been a long day.
Right.
Yeah. And he shows up and he tells her, and I'm not even racing through the story. It just is that short. That he's been sick and he's come for help, and it's been about 3 weeks. And
he says sometimes it's in my head, sometimes it's in my stomach.
Yeah. And she goes, my granddaughter Melinda died 3 weeks ago, and he's like, oh, I knew Melinda. We had some good old times together or whatever. And she's like, she worked for you. And I was like, oh, God damn it, she's a pimp. And then, here's the whole story. He was her pimp. I don't know if we're meant to believe he killed her or she just died from overhoeing. There's no real, she didn't OD. There's no real explanation as to how she died.
Yeah, she got motel room disease.
Yeah. Just a lethal case of bed bugs. But she went back to her grandma's or whatever.
The bed bugs ate her like the scarabs in the mummy.
And she's like, obviously, so she's doing voodoo to him because for revenge for his granddaughter, right? And she tells him his argument was women like me, I can't help it. I never. He goes, but I swear, I never told none of them they would end up with me forever. But that's not. No, you're okay. She knows you're a pimp. She's she worked for you. She said that. So she's not mad that you left her granddaughter for another woman. You exploited this woman's sex work, and then she died of some mysterious disease.
Women can't help it. They come up to me, and then they start selling their bodies, and I take the money. I can't help it.
So she starts sticking this fucking voodoo doll, to which he freaks out, chokes her to death.
Very quickly. So quickly.
Not only just quickly, but almost calmly, she barely fights and is just asleep. She doesn't gag or anything. She's just kind of struggling, and then her eyes are closed and she's just asleep.
Anytime I see someone getting strangled in a movie, I'm like, if I were in that situation, I would just pretend to die really quickly, and then they would stop. And that's how quickly.
Exactly how fast it is. Yeah, because if you we live in a world of true crime. Strangulation takes a very long time and a lot of effort, and he just kind of choked her a little bit. And
somebody explained it this way. They were like, "Hold your breath." Oh, did you die in 30 seconds?
Yeah. Exactly. He runs away, but then he starts. Something stabbing him again, and it cuts back, and because there's been a dog there the whole time. The dog is chewing the fucking.
Voodoo doll, which you would think would happen all the time because
it's a chew toy. It's exactly a chew toy.
But if my dog had been near that voodoo doll, we would have seen the man lift in the air and just shred apart.
Yeah. No, it would have lasted. My dog goes through those things in 8 seconds. That man would have been just intestines everywhere. The dog then buries the doll, and I guess that's what finally kills him. It's a little weird because you would think. So the dog's chewing it and shaking it and all this stuff. You would think that would have killed him.
Yeah,
he's actually kind of okay. Once he drops the doll, he's okay.
It's like he got punched a couple of times. He's he dusts himself off, and then it comes back to the dog digging a hole, and then it doesn't that's the end of the story, and it cuts back to James Coburn, who then just tells us the end of it.
It's so weird.
He pulls the voodoo doll out of a bag, and he goes, investigators found this buried near the woman's house. Like, if it's just a doll buried in the dirt outside of the house, they would never have found it.
They would, one, never have found it. Two, if the investigators did find it, why would they take it? Because they're not voodoo investigators.
Right.
And secondly, how do you have it then? None of this makes any sense.
Now we're like, well, I think James Coburn is trying to build his own backstory and be like, I'm actually a guy who knows a guy at the police station or whatever. That's how he gets all these stories, is like he knows the guy at the police station.
Yeah. He also, like, this story also kind of felt like this was supposed to be a longer story, and they just were like, oh, we can't use it. We'll just cut this, like, the end out and make it a story in and of itself. Because you're, like, dropped into the middle of it in the beginning. It ends immediately. It's just, like, there's no real... Even, like, the short little stories have a twist. Like, we've seen a couple of these short stories now, and they have a little twist, right?
And they've, like, gone longer than a commercial break. They
at least go through a commercial break. And also, like, you go a certain direction, and then there's a twist, and then there's a reveal, right? That's been the sort of framework for these. The guy gets to cutting the people's leg, the couple cutting hobo's legs off, the time travel thing, oh shit, it's Nazis. There's no turn. He just shows up, she's like, you killed my grandmother, stick a needle. There's no like, I'm surprised.
It's just the voodoo works the way it's supposed to work.
It also that place should have just been called, like, Grandma's Voodoo Shack. It was the most clearly voodoo. As soon as they walked up, I was like, oh, this is a voodoo story. I don't know why I'm looking at this.
Oh, y'all saw voodoo?
Y'all saw voodoo right there? Which leads, and that's literally it. Like, that's the whole show. It's 5 minutes, 6 minutes maybe. It's very short.
I could not believe when James Coburn appeared. I was like, that's it?
Yeah.
Jesus.
You would have thought, like, oh, they'll be like, he'll have to, like, make amends. That's also what's weird with this show is these are often... Shows like this are often morality plays, right? Somebody does something bad, and then whatever they get what they deserve.
Yeah, it gets flipped back around.
There's very little of that in this show. Like,
but they think they're doing it.
Yeah. Which follows. We might as well get into the next, the longer story of this episode, which is the Siege of 31 August, and. I gotta admit, I kind of like this one. It's weird, and it is dark. When you really think about this episode, it is dark as shit. It's about a man struggling with PTSD who's beating his wife and trying to force his failed soldier dreams onto his son, who eventually kills himself. That is essentially what this story is.
Okay, I you know what, when you spell it out that way, I have a lot more respect for it.
I get you. It's a little.
Yeah, I thought it was very boring.
It's kind of slow for sure. It definitely is too long. It is too long.
Well, I wonder if this is a chicken egg scenario. Did they not have enough of a first story, so they like left a lot in there that they might have
kind of a lot of fat on it, because there is a lot of fat.
Yeah, except not on who's the guy? Ronnie Cox. Very slim man.
Also, I don't know that I've ever seen a young Ronnie Cox before. I only know Ronnie Cox as like the boss, he's like the head of the cops in Beverly Hills Cops. He's like always just got like white hair. Like, I've never seen him.
Was he in Deliverance?
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I'd have to IMDb it. I don't know. All of my Ronnie Cox thoughts are that, and then he's also in Deep Blue Sea in the weirdest scene. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yes, but who is he in Deep Blue Sea?
Okay, so this is what's wild. Ronnie Cox is like, he's in RoboCop. He's like in things. Like he's like an actor for like that's lines and things. In that, he's just a dude at a desk. Like, so Samuel Jackson's like in a video, like whatever, and he's like goes to see the boss guy or whatever. He's the boss guy who's just sitting there. He doesn't have a single line, and then Sam Jackson leaves, and that's it. That's all he is in that movie. Clearly, like a larger storyline got cut or something, but it is like he is stares dead in the camera, never says a word. That's his whole role. It's weird.
Wow.
So in this, he is a farmer. This is post-Vietnam. Also, it opens up with our James Coburn monologue of this is like something about how war leaves scars or some shit.
War has victims, some that weren't like soldiers, and he goes, some that weren't even born yet.
Yeah. So we cut to a farm. There's a woman working. Ronnie Cox pulls up. He has good news. He's like, not only like she goes, you go to the bank? He says, yeah. Also, I don't know why this is funny to me because it's just like generic farm talk to me.
Yeah.
But she's like, did you go to the bank? And he's like, oh, did I? Not only did I get the money for the well, but I got us a contract for the beans. And she's like, all of them? She's like, whole crop. Good price, too. This is a very dumb thing and how disconnected we are from our food supply.
Yeah.
I was like, I guess you do grow beans on a farm, I guess. I just never even think about that.
But I'm like,
oh, you look at this giant sprawling farm and you're like, oh, it's cows or corn or whatever. No, it's beans probably. That also makes sense.
Yeah, but you also are like picturing a modern day farmer just like pulling out his phone and going to the Harvest app and then drones come down and scoop all the beans out.
Exactly. Have you ever driven like through the middle of the country and see like this giant sweeping thing of like corn or wheat or whatever?
I'm from Nebraska.
Never mind. Of course, I'm dumb. And then it's just like the longest fucking machine. It's like an acre-long machine with wheels that just kind of rolls across the top of the farm or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know what it does.
That
but
is an irrigator that sprays water out and it rotates in a circle to spray all the crops.
Word. Yeah. So he's got that. He's got a son. He's like, oh, where's Billy or whatever. No one cares what this kid's name. Kid comes running. Kid's like, what'd you get me? What'd you get me?
Yeah.
He's got him some like G.I. Joes, essentially. Company B, it's called.
Toy soldiers.
What I thought was so dumb, there's 2 packages, right? And they're wrapped in brown paper. He opens the first one, and it's Company B. He goes, oh, boy, I got Company B. What's the second one? It's just another Company B. You couldn't just get different toys?
Right.
It's just the cheapest. Like, just make a Company C. Make a second box.
He got him 2 starter decks. Like, what are you doing? Get this Company B and get the Company C, the expansion pack.
Clearly. Gets him just 2 of the same toy, which I thought was very lazy. And then
it's not real war. You don't need the numbers.
Yeah, but that's his argument. Is that like you have to be like because basically he tells him like so go why don't you go set up the encampment and I'll be by to inspect or whatever, which is like could be cute. Like, could be like a cute thing you say to your like, oh, my son likes playing with G.I. Joes. I'll be the general or whatever. But it's not. He's just like very serious about the way this kid plays with toys.
Yeah.
He's just like, nope, you have to. At one point, he's like, oh, that embankment you built, you're going to need a guy up there. You've left your flank open. It's like, oh, you're just like.
Yeah.
You're the the guy who peaked at football in high school, except for war.
You're a stage mom, but for a rock. Because we find out that so he's a Vietnam vet, and now he is sending this kid off to military school. He's like 10, I think.
Maybe.
I think 10? They say he's 10.
Okay, sure. He's little.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know why this was weird to me, and we'll come right back to this point. When we see him, he's like on a farm, but he's wearing like a kind of nice sweater and khaki pants or like kind of blue chinos. And I was like, okay, maybe the kid doesn't do like any farm work. And then the next time we see him, he's shirtless, shoeless, and overalls covered in dirt. And I was like, what is this kid's life? Is he just like the deliverance kid or is he like going to school? I don't know.
Yeah, that was church dad.
But yeah, so the dad's sending him off to military.
Yeah, and he tells him like they have a one-on-one conversation, and he tells him like, I want you to be more than I was, and I want you to like go to military school and like be a great soldier because the military will be great for you.
Yeah. The mom is not into military school, and they're having some conflict about it. The mom tells him like he says, "I want my son's going to be more than he's not going to be some dirt farmer trying to pick a life out of the hard scrabble. He's going to be an educated man or whatever." And she's like, "Yeah, but he doesn't have to go to war to do that."
Right,
The military, she goes, the military already took your leg, by the way. He's got a leg. It's just fucked up. Like he has a bad limp.
Yeah.
Which he is leaning into. Like that's his bit of acting for this is having that limp. Because all he does to have this limp is never bend at the knee.
Right.
So his leg's just constantly kind of stuck out too far.
I'm like, maybe it's supposed to be like a stiff prosthetic. I don't know. It could be. I don't know. That's not this necessarily.
Also, they don't make it like all it would take would be one shot of him pulling up a pant leg to show a fake leg. It doesn't and we'd be like, okay, I get it now, but they don't have the budget for that. So like,
they also, I don't think that competent of storytellers really.
So the wife at one point the wife says something to him shitty and he shoots her this look and I wrote down like, where is it? Hold on. The mom doesn't want this for the kid. Oh, yeah. She says to him, you sit here every night after night filling his head with stories, most of which aren't even true. And he shoots her this, like, bitch, you better watch your mouth look. And I was like, oh, that's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be fine because he's just going to beat the shit out of her repeitly through the rest of this episode.
Right.
Like, that shit is, like, just foreshadowing. He is a domestic abuser.
Oh, God, yeah. There's a scene where we have a second instance in this show of a man shirtless with a belt and jeans on. Ronnie Cox working outside in his belt and jeans.
Yes. So the kid is now playing with these toys, and the kid comes up to him and asks him about Don Lock. And not a name, but like a village, like in Vietnam or whatever. And he says something, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. And he says, oh, the colonel told me about it, and he was out making a pontoon bridge with the colonel. It took a couple hours or whatever. So the kid is starting to get messages from the toy soldiers about a massacre that happened in fucking Vietnam.
Right.
This is a 10-year-old child, and he keeps coming back and about, how the soldiers burnt down this village, and it was all civilians, and it's like, what the fuck is going? Like, it's very I found like effective to me. This like kid coming back and just being like, oh yeah, the colonel's telling me about how you killed all those women or whatever.
Yeah, he's really taking it all in stride too, because there's never a point where he's like, oh, the toys aren't supposed to talk to me.
Yeah.
And then they're telling about war crimes, which is an entirely another level.
And not only are the toys talking, more and more toys are showing up.
Yeah, the dad walks by and he gets furious because he grabs the kid and he goes, where did you get the rest of the
toys?
There's more than
I bought
than what I bought you.
And where did you get the rest of these toys? It's like, I don't know. They just keep coming.
Yeah, he's like convinced the kid stole them. Which when has the kid left the farm?
The kid can't leave the farm. You have the only truck or whatever. Clearly, this kid isn't walking there. I had the same thing. Like, believe your ears too. At one point, he's laying in bed and he's hearing like war chatter
and like men
shouting and radios and whatever. And like some gunfire or whatever, but like clear war, like the sounds of war. And then the next morning he goes to the kid and he's like, did you sneak out of bed last night? And he's like, no. He says, well, I heard somebody setting off fireworks. No, you didn't. You heard grown men having yelling conversations.
Right.
Very clear.
And you would think that with his issues in particular, his first instinct, if not that's just men shouting or whatever, it would be, oh, I'm just hearing this.
I'm clearly having, I'm going through some
not
shit.
To just blame your child, your small child with a squeaky voice.
Who he then who's clearly not talking, right? That clearly has a child's voice. He goes back to the dad and tells him about they're starting to tell me about these massacres or whatever, to which the dad goes, who told you about that? Your mom? I knew she was going to turn you against me. Runs back to the house. The next shot is a POV shot of him hitting his wife.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Insane.
It's insane. Like, it's like if they did domestic abuse as like a first-person video game.
Yes.
That's the shot. It's insane.
It's when you're playing GoldenEye and you run out of bullets.
Yeah, you have to slap.
It was that shot.
Slappers only in GoldenEye.
Yeah.
Exactly what it is. Which she brushes off relatively quickly. She's like
It does seem like it's happened a lot before.
For sure. There's like because he does do one of the. He does like I'll give you a fresh one kind of hand motion at one point. And he's like, I didn't tell you. She's like insisting I didn't tell him anything. Says you must have got it out of that book. Goes into his room. Why does he has like a shrine to war in his like also this farm shouldn't have like a study, but it does.
Yeah.
And in it is just like an M16 mounted on the wall, a bunch of like flags and war.
A uniform.
There's a grenade hanging on a hook. That's the set dressing, by the way. And I was like, do you just get to take those with you?
And he grabs a book that's called like the Vietnam Chronicles.
Yeah. And it's just dated 1973 to whatever the fuck.
Yeah. Which I don't know if we're supposed to think that book describes everything that ever happened in the Vietnam War.
That's exactly what we're supposed to think, because he looks up Don Locke in the book and he's like, well, it's not in here, so it can't be real. So clearly we're meant to believe that that's the only thing, you know what I mean? He goes...
the 90% of this book is the John McCain chapter. I can't find anything about Don Locke.
At one point, he's like mad with the wife. He goes back out to... they're like talking and he sees smoke back by the barn. So he runs back and there's a fire. It's a fire. What is on fire is... where the kids' toys had been.
Oh, my God.
Where the kids' toys had been, like the trucks and the soldiers, is now a tiny Vietnamese village, like thatch-roofed huts and like raised platform buildings, like a little Vietnamese village that's just on fire.
It's on fire.
It's just like this massacre that supposedly this kid has made, but we know there's some supernatural shit happening.
His child, Nick Mullen, built a replica of
the Miley
village.
Massacre village. He's like, that's it. He's like mad at the kid because he thinks the kid made this. By the way, if that kid made that, get him to art school immediately. That is like a perfect 2-scale replica of a village.
Oh God, yeah,
like, that's beautiful work.
Yeah, but I want to. There's some implications here. Just occurring to me, like. We mostly only see like the toy soldier army like get bigger and like make with their own formations. That's a village. That's like mini civilians somewhere.
Sure.
Is there an entire miniature universe?
Yeah, I think there's some. Oh, what was that? Oh, Marin Call? Is that it? The Steve Carell movie that had come out that was based on a documentary.
Yeah, Welcome to Marin or something like
that. Yeah.
Welcome to Marwin.
There you go. Yeah. It's just that. It's just Steve Carell's in that
Marwin.
village.
The Marwin Massacre.
So we find out that the husband was flat out involved in a massacre where they killed a bunch of civilians in Vietnam. And the show kind of takes his side a bit.
Oh, yeah. He, like, describes getting suicide grenade attacks.
Yeah. So he's like, I was there, and I was there when that little girl grabbed Steve Johnson, or whoever his friend was.
Yeah.
12 years old. I saw her pull his pin and blow him the kingdom come or whatever. So like, and I was there when the fat cats in Washington tried to have us court-martialed for doing our jobs, and it's like, no, you murdered a bunch of civilians, you psychopath. And then the wife is like, I don't blame you, I wasn't there. Like, that's her. There's no side. Like, it's weird because like, the massacre thing is kind of portrayed as bad. The kid no longer wants to be a soldier. He tells his dad, I don't want to be a soldier anymore because he's finding out about all these massacres and shit. And the dad's like, well, no, you're going. I'm taking you there tomorrow, which is, by the way, not how how any school works. He's supposed to go there in like November or whatever, like a few months from now.
Yeah.
Then he just calls the school and is like, I'm bringing them tomorrow. And the guy's like, yeah, all right, that's fine.
Like we got a year-round thing going on.
It's so weird. And then he asked the guy on the phone, who's Colonel or whatever, about Don Locke, and he goes, "Oh, how did you hear about that?" It's like, it was another massacre. It was like these people killed all these civilians. We thought it was soldiers.
He describes a top secret war crime over the phone to this man.
to just this dude. Yeah, that's exactly what happens, right? He tells him, look, Don Locke was this massacre that happened. Nobody was around, so we covered it up. It's not something to be proud of.
Right. But I'll tell you right now.
But that being said, write this down. So the next morning, he's supposed to bring the kid. The wife says, like, I'm leaving. By the way, not a good mom. The wife is like, look, I don't want you to take the son, but if you do, I'm just going to leave. Or maybe take the son, like, maybe you take the son with you. Like, what? You're leaving, you're just going to leave the son with this fucking clear lunatic?
Yeah. Look, I want you to
violent lunatic?
I want you to make the right call with my son, but it's up to you. Goodbye.
He goes to the barn, he hears noise in the barn, and it's like Gulliver's Vietnam travels. Yeah. He goes into the... First off, by the way, he doesn't just go to the barn. For some full-on PTSD mental breakdown, he goes back to his little war shrine, puts on his military uniform, his helmet.
Before he does that, he flips out and gets in his tractor, and he takes the tractor over to where the toys are.
Yeah.
He takes the backhoe, and he just starts like burying them in the sand and running them over back and forth.
Yeah.
Which doesn't seem like a very effective way to ruin a bunch of toys.
They're also clearly just sticking out of the dirt. Like they're not even like he didn't even do a good job of burying them.
It would have been better for him to put them all in a garbage bag and throw them away.
A box of some kind, for sure. Absolutely. Then he goes and puts on his military. He still has his uniform. He puts on his uniform. He gets his M16 with fully loaded clips in the drawer, which he gets to just have, I guess.
Right.
And he goes out to the barn.
It's weird because I picture any other farmer in the universe, and if they hear a disturbance, they would get their rifle that
grab
they
a
keep,
gun, sure.
and then they would just go outside and like chase someone away. They would not put on their old military uniform.
Well, that's because this man is clearly having a full PTSD mental breakdown. That's the whole episode, point of this episode. He's been like obsessed with the war. He wanted to be a soldier. He fucked up his leg, so he couldn't do that. And now he's trying to force that on his son. That's the whole point of this episode. But that being said, he goes out to the barn, and there's a bunch of little soldiers running around. Now, this is 1979 or whatever this show was made, so it's obviously very cheesy effects.
Yeah.
But he is his normal size, and there are then tiny little men in uniform with tiny little trucks and tanks driving around, and they start shooting at him. And I kind of found this real fun because it was very Gulliver's Travels like.
I found the small soldiers to be perfectly realistic enough. Like,
yeah, it totally worked.
When I first saw them, it startled me because I was not expecting like live action little men.
Yeah, it's just little men.
To be moving around.
Little men running around. It's not toys anymore.
Yeah, it's like
little men.
It's like when they film like King Kong or Godzilla, and you can tell that they just like overlaid 2 layers of film.
Yeah, exactly. So, except they also do a couple things that I laughed for a good 30 seconds at one of. A lot of it is just, like you said, layered of film. But they also want to do stuff to scale. So they made a giant saw hand. Like there's like a saw next to a bucket, right?
Yeah.
But they made them clearly oversized so that the people would look like little compared to it, right? Because you have an idea of scale. So there's this saw handle, and as their soldiers are running away, one of them just runs through the saw handle for no reason. Easily could have went around it. It's easier to go around than climb through, but clearly whoever the set guy was like, you know how long it took me to make that fucking handle? You're climbing through that goddamn hole.
I picture that soldier being the guy who walks through doorways and like touches the top of it. He just does that stuff unnecessarily.
Has to do it. So he gets just shot up a bunch by these tanks and helicopters, which, by the way, the helicopters that you can see every string holding them
absolutely.
up. Just they don't even try to hide it. It's very obvious.
Yeah, the difference in effect and care taken towards the soldiers versus that helicopter.
It's terrible.
Dramatic.
Particularly since in the next episode, there'll be another instance of something floating, and you can't see the strings at all. It's perfectly fine. So he gets shot a bunch by these things, and there's like some blood, and he gets shot in the leg by a tank, but they're little bullets, but they're still fucking him up. He gets knocked down. And then some gasoline spills, and he gets fucking burnt to death in his barn by these little soldiers who then run away.
The gasoline spills, and it runs over towards the burning wreckage of the miniature
the helicopter that he smashed out of the sky. And the barn burned. Well, the barn doesn't all the way, which actually is a little weird because, like, he's like coughing and he's passed out, and there's all these flames and smoke. And then it pans out, and you see like an explosion.
Yeah.
Like through the windows and the door of the barn, and then the next scene is like the cops and the fire department have shown up. Barn's fine. Barn doesn't look like it's been burned at all. It's just a perfectly fine barn.
It seemed like kind of a small explosion too. It was weird. It was kind of a weird, subdued shot.
They're talking to the wife. The cop. This I thought was really weird. The sheriff's talking to the wife and says like, if you want to come stay with us.
Oh yeah.
Why are you offering that? The house is fine. Like, there's no the house didn't catch on fire. It's just a barn. Like they can just. It felt like creepy the way he did it. There was just something gross about it.
It was weirdly like paternalistic and like.
Also, I thought it was weird that they just let that kid walk around that fucking barn where his dad just burned to death. There's like nobody. The kid's just wandering through this crime scene, I'm assuming it would be called.
Nobody's investigating why this man had like tiny little holes in him.
Or why he's dressed in his fucking war uniform. Any number of questions.
No
one
questions.
might have.
They just said if we had only gotten here 5 minutes sooner, which I don't know if that's true.
No, not true at all.
I don't think that would
He was
help.
for sure dead before you got here.
They appear to live at least 3 hours from the nearest town, so.
I also thought it was weird that he would see ostensibly American soldiers and immediately start trying to kill them, right? Like,
and
you think
like,
he's Mr. Soldier Guy, right? The first thing he does, he sees a little truck with a dude in it, and he picks it up and smashes it against the wall. I was like, it's a wild move. They weren't even bothering you. Maybe have a conversation.
Maybe it's, I
I mean, I get you can freak out. There's little things running around, what's happening, but like,
I think it's
you're wearing the same clothes. Like, you're in the same uniform.
Maybe that would not register as quickly enough. I don't know. I think I would probably freak out and try to step on them or something.
Sure, I did laugh when he picked up that truck. It was like, man.
And then we see the man like crawling. His tiny little spine broke.
And he says to the kid doesn't have to go to military school anymore, which is nice. And the mom puts a jacket on him oddly. But it wasn't odd that she put a jacket on him. She just did it in an odd way. She puts it over his shoulders without putting his sleeves through it, which is perfectly normal. But then she buttons the whole front, all of the buttons. So he's just wearing an oddly weird tight cape. It's a very strange move.
Don't want him to be able to move too fast, so gotta keep an eye on him.
And then she tells the kid, she's like, you can cry for your dad. You should or whatever. Yeah, I would hope so. He literally just died. Yeah. He died 8 minutes ago. Yep. But then she tells him, you can stay out here as long as you want. And then she gets up and leaves. She's just going to leave the fucking kid in the barn that still smells of her husband's flesh burning. It just happened.
There's still 50 police and firemen doing their jobs. Yeah. I'm going to go inside.
The other thing that made me laugh in this episode, and then we'll get on to the next one, is when he does call that the colonel about taking the kid early, and he asks him about Don Locke. The reaction of the colonel is the most cartoonish.
Yes,
he says he asks him, he says something about what do you mean Don Locke, and he turns to the camera, rack zoom on his face, throw the paper he was reading. Did you say Don Locke?
Did you say Don Locke?
It's just the most cartoonish overthrow. It really made me laugh.
I forgot about it. That was a great zoom.
Yeah. It's just perfect.
They had the most fun. That was the most fun shot to shoot in that entire series episode. I bet.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of like that story. It definitely went too long, but I really enjoyed the Gulliver's Travel shit at the end. It was super dark and weird, and I just kind of enjoyed it.
It was very silly at the end for how horrific the events leading up to it were.
Sure, very silly at the end, comparatively. Which brings us to episode 4, the first story of which is A Quiet Funeral. And this is the one with the camera and the light, right? Is this the story or is it the next one? No, the next one's makeup. So this is the story with the camera.
With James Coburn.
With James Coburn thing where he says, you said you have it, where he says
he says, oh, this film is ruined.
Yeah. Because there's a crack in the camera. And
the camera has to be completely light-proof. Yeah. It has to be dark.
Like a tomb.
As a tomb.
But then he says, so here's what's weird. So he says, he talks about this fucking character's name is Marty Vetch is his name. Marty Vetch. And he says, Marty Vetch is a low-level thug who's addicted to the nightlife and always has to have something going because he's terrified of death. He's terrified of that black beyond where he's going to be alone forever.
Yeah.
The story is about none of that.
No.
Nothing of that happens at all in this story.
He says that the man is afraid of death, but not more than a normal person.
No more than a normal person. And also never mentions being afraid of death. He doesn't want to die at the end of the episode.
Sure, yeah.
But there's no moment beforehand where he's afraid of death. I laughed.
I'd say someone on Twitter, being afraid of death is not a personality.
Yeah. It opens with two an older, heavy-set dude, and they're doing some sort of deal, him and another older guy. And I was like, this is the young, low-level thug who's obsessed with death? This doesn't make any sense. It's not. We'll meet him later.
They're in a house sitting at a table that is lit by a single gas lamp in the middle.
Also, when they leave that house, so he's buying some... It turns out this guy,
trading counterfeit money.
But I don't know that he still is. He went legit. He's giving him something that is real. He does he was. So the way I understand the story was that he used to be a counterfeiter, forged documents, that kind of thing. But he went straight, and now he's doing straight business. And that's why the young guy's mad. He's like, you went straight and you left me looking like a bum or whatever.
But, like, if you're going straight, you don't usually walk out of an abandoned house with a briefcase of $50,000.
Well, that was so weird because they have this conversation about, like, yeah, I used to make all this stuff, but, now that I've gone straight or whatever, he's made these whatever. They leave. The windows are boarded up. Why is this? Does this deal go on in a haunted house? Like, what is this? It feels like they shot it on the set that the opening credits were filmed.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Because we don't see any part of that house except for one shot of that room.
That's it.
It totally could be.
I'm positive that's what it was. He leaves, and as he's driving, he's turning. It's like going around the corner at night. There's a van parked on the road, but also his brake line has been. He tries to hit the brakes, it doesn't work, right? And that made me think. Cutting people's brake lines used to be such a trope. Like in like movies and like fucking soap operas or whatever. I haven't seen someone's brake lines be cut. Can you just not do that on new cars?
I don't know if it's more complicated. I also think that it's kind of like, I don't know if it's
might just been done.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem that if somebody cut your brake lines, you would find out within the first 30 seconds of you being in the car.
You would not have to get out. Trying to back out of my driveway.
You would not have to get on like a fast-moving road.
For sure, absolutely.
So it's weird that keeps happening. I don't know.
So he goes over this hill. He crashes into a tree or whatever. He's pinned in his car. And then the guy from the van comes down who looked like every 70s porn star ever. Like he's wearing like a members only jacket. He has his fucking mustache. And he tells him that, like, he's like, you got to get me out of here. He pops his trunk and takes the $50,000. And he says to him, like, you went straight, which is great for you, but you left me out here looking like a bum. And I got nothing, whatever. So you owe me this money. And then he kicks him, pushes him further off the cliff, which was fun because like he's just kind of sitting there, and all he does is put his foot on the bumper, push it up and down twice, and then the car falls, just flipping over, so
rolls into a lake.
Which I thought was very fun. He goes back to he's in Vegas, and he goes to his girlfriend, who is getting ready to leave him.
Yeah, she's going to go back to Detroit.
Going back to Detroit. By the way, she's packing in lingerie. Yeah. She's packing in a lace camisole and lingerie.
That's what I'm wearing to the airport.
Which is really, like, you look very serious about leaving. She says this line. She says to him, like, you promised me action. The only action I get is you playing tug and tuckle on the Posturepedic. Tug and tuckle?
I think she said tussle. I still don't know what she's talking about, though.
Like raping her? Tug and tussle? I mean, a Posturepedic is a bed. It was, like, very popular in the 70s. Essentially, people, for some reason, in the 70s wanted hospital beds in their house. It was like an automatic bed where if you hit a button, the back would sit up or go down. So tug and tussle just doesn't sound good.
Well, they're fighting over the bed remotes.
And he tells her, you want action? And he pops open. She's like, give me one reason to stay. One reason. And he pops open the briefcase. It's 50,000 reasons, sweetheart, or whatever. He says, my friend had a car. He doesn't need it anymore. He had this terrible accident.
I know that is a cliched phrase, but I just like the idea that $1 is one reason. So she's like, give me a reason to leave, and he pulls out a dollar.
A single, just throws it at her. Ooh, fresh. Here's what I thought was funny. He tells her, like, look, you have to cut, like, you got to stay. I got all this. Like, where'd you get that money from? She says, and he's like, oh, I got it from my friend. He doesn't need it anymore. He had a bad accident. And she's like, oh, this is murder. You murdered. Like, she figures it out immediately. Oh, yeah. And
because he's not being very coy.
Not being coy about it. And also, she figures out it's murder. She's like, I don't want any part of this. And he's like, come on, baby. And she goes, yeah, all right. Like, that's all the twisting of her arm it takes. Is just, he's like, I need you, baby. And she's like, all right, that's all. That's it. That's all of it.
Come on, aid and abet me, baby.
And he's like, look, I saw in the newspaper. They said it was. He gets a copy of the Detroit newspaper at the local newsstand or whatever. Yeah. And it says, oh, look, it's a fucking. It says it. An accidental
drowning.
Accidental drowning. They don't think it's murder. We're free and clear. He said, but look, I do. She's like, don't go back for the funeral. And so I have to go back for the funeral. Everybody knows he was like a dad to me. So if I don't go, they're going to get suspicious. So he goes back to Detroit for the funeral, and everyone's like, oh, he was so great, and he could. he could make a Lithuanian dollar or a New Zealand passport or whatever.
He could make. Yeah, he said he could make anything. This is the mortician talking.
Well, no, that's not the mortician. It's his friend. Like, it's just a guy. I think it's a mutual mob associate. These guys are all criminals. I think that guy was supposed to be somebody they all knew, from the mob or whatever.
But it sounded like Marty complimented him on how good a job he did making Charlie look good.
Maybe
I thought
I might have missed that. It's entirely possible.
I think that guy runs the funeral home, but he also might be connected because he
clearly knows Charlie.
Yes. He totally because he calls him an artist.
Yeah.
And he says that guy could. What did he say? That guy could print anything from a C note to a Lithuanian passport.
Yeah. And they say look, it's going to be tomorrow will be the funeral. It'll be real quiet. It'll be great. And he's like, I can't stay. I got to get back. I got business in Las Vegas, but tell everybody how I was here. He goes over to the coffin to pay his respects. And the guy in the casket fucking wakes up and grabs him. Yeah. And I was like, whoa, this is dope. And it was like, all it took was one fake newspaper. You should have known there was fake newspapers, man. He's an artist.
Yes,
that's the whole point.
That's his game.
That's his whole gag.
They said the newspaper stand guy was their friend.
Yeah.
And then
that's all it took to get you here.
Perfect trap.
Yeah. It was right. I really liked it.
Climbs out, flips him into the casket, locks the casket up.
And they're going to bury him alive in the fucking morning. It's great. I fucking thoroughly thought this was a very fun little twist ending.
My favorite, I think my favorite little piece so far.
Yeah. Super fun. And doesn't overstay its welcome, just super fun.
And it's like an actual morality tale.
Exactly.
Done
don't fucking steal from your friends and whatever. Don't
roll
murder,
your friend into the lake.
Yeah. But I thought it was perfect. I really enjoyed this, which leads us into the next episode, which is weird.
I kind of liked it too.
I kind of liked it too. It had a real amazing stories kind of vibe. I didn't catch the name of this one.
Makeup. It's just makeup.
It's called Makeup.
Yeah.
Okay, James Coburn starts talking about how makeup and women wear makeup, and he goes, myself, I like the natural look. You know what you're getting. Shut up. Shut up, gross old man. I don't like it.
Yeah, he's like being a red pill guy, where women are put on makeup and lying to you.
Yeah. It was gross, and I didn't like it at all. But we meet our hero.
Yeah.
A young Billy Crystal.
Billy Crystal.
Also, Brian Denny, he's kicking around this episode.
Yes.
Most star-studded one yet. Billy Crystal's clearly down on his luck. You can tell because he hasn't shaved and his jacket's too big for him. Mm-hmm. He goes to see Brian Denny after having done a job for him. He had to slide an envelope.
He also has a limp.
Well, he has a limp because he's been bitten by a dog.
Well, I thought that he got the limp earlier because he said the dog almost took off my one good leg.
Oh, that's true. He did say that. That is true.
So he probably got the limp from, doing a war crime in Vietnam.
as you get limps.
Yeah.
He shows up and he's like, hey, boss, I delivered that envelope just like you said. I slid it under the door. You should have told me about that dog, though. Look at I almost bit off my one good leg. And Brian Denny tells him, no, the house I sent you doesn't have a dog. You must have put it under the wrong door.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, it's 3207. He goes, no, 3270. That's what your associate told me. And the guy goes, oh, did I? I'm sorry. I must have gotten it wrong. And then Brian Denny's like, oh, you don't get the money because you put it on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And Billy Crystal goes, no, I didn't. I did what you told me to. The other guy just admitted he fucked it up.
Yeah, somebody fucked up and it wasn't me.
Yeah. And they're like, well, you're still not getting the money. Which, that's not the mob move would have been like, oh, you put it under the wrong door, wink, wink. You must have messed up the numbers. The other guy should have been like, yeah, I told you the right
just
numbers.
Be like,
yeah, I guess I did fuck up, and then you still don't get the money.
I'm fucking stupid. I guess I fucked up the address.
Yeah. It just didn't make any sense. That move didn't make any sense to me.
Unless to just be like, this is how arrogant and
shitty Brian is, I guess.
Unforgiving they are. I don't know.
They're going to give him he's like, get him a drink. It's a drink. You owe me $100. $100 you owe me. Mm-hmm. He's back behind on his rent, and his rent is $50. It's
right.
It's the old days.
But he does
control in places.
But he also lives in a shithole.
It's not the nicest place, but I've lived it. I would, at $100 a month, I would absolutely live in an apartment.
I suppose. But what's that back then?
That's also true. But also, I think it was supposed to be a low amount of money. Like, he didn't, it wasn't a lot. We're talking about $100 being, like, life-changing, and I don't think it's 1980.
You know what it looked like? It looked like Charlie's apartment in Always Sunny.
A little bit, yeah. He goes to a pawn shop. Well, he runs into this girl who's bartending. Well, she's... This was so weird. So he throws about, like, somebody get him a drink or whatever, and he's basically meeting him. He's meeting Brian Denny in, like, the back of what is ostensibly a bar. But then the girl, this happened in the same place, right? I'm pretty sure this.
I think it's a different place.
I couldn't
because it looked like
because then she picks up a bowl of soup and he's like, "What are you going to do? Fire me?" And I was like, "Why would this place have soup?"
I think he went to a. It wasn't clear because they showed no other.
There was
exterior.
no change. He just got up.
They didn't show an exterior, but I think he went to a diner. I think that's supposed to be a diner, and she looked like a diner waitress.
She did look like a diner waitress, but I just never saw him leave that room. So it was very
there was
weird.
No establishing shot. Right?
Yeah. And she's like, "Look, I'm leaving town. Come with me to Miami. We can make it work." And he's like, "I don't have enough money to get to the fucking southbound bus or whatever."
Yeah.
She's like, "Well, you'll figure it out if you really want me or whatever." So he goes to the pawn shop. He's going to sell this watch. The guy at the pawn shop's like, "Oh, Pete, come on. I'm the one who sold you this watch. I know what it's worth. I can give you maybe $20." And he goes on, and Billy, we get a little sob story for Billy Crystal. He used to work at the plant or whatever. You remember how those days everybody was spending money like it was going out of style or whatever.
Yeah, this town is going through a little economic hard time.
Clearly, now nobody has any money. Even the pawn shop doesn't really have any money.
Right.
And this old lady comes in.
Yeah.
And it's like, "Oh, I was hoping to sell this, and it's my husband was this actor." And you might know him from The Raven at Midnight or some movie. And they clearly don't know what she's talking about. He's clearly like an old-timey actor that they're not.
Yeah, his name's Lamont Tremaine.
Lamont Tremaine. Tremaine with an M?
Yeah.
Nope, that's not a name.
The old lady, I wrote this down. She's wearing one of those old lady hats that make it look like you are a bird dressed as a person.
Yeah, it's like kind of lacy in an old lady way.
Kind of nesty.
For sure. And she's like, "Oh, he was also in The Man of 1,000 Faces." They called him The Man of 1,000 Faces. And he's like, "Oh, well, what's this box?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I told you. It's his makeup kit." And they open it up, and there's like fake mustaches and all this stuff. And she's like,
powdered makeup.
And she says, people would say when he put on the makeup, he wouldn't just look like the character; he would become the character.
Yeah.
She's like, he's like, "I don't even know what to offer you for this."
She also said that he made the makeup himself, and he could have been a chemist. She says, which means he's a genius, I think.
Well, clearly he's something, and we'll get to it in a minute.
That's true, I guess.
Maybe a witch? I don't know, because there's like magic involved.
Yeah.
So she says, like, "Look, I'll take anything." Because this is my husband and I's anniversary, even though he's dead. And I was like, I don't know why that would mean you'll take anything. Obviously, she just needs money. And Billy Crystal's like, "Hey, look, he's going to pay. He'll give her the $20 and take the makeup case, right?" He goes home, he's looking through the makeup case, and he sees this thing, and it's like The Revenge of Colossus.
Yeah.
I think it's the name. And it's
the makeup tins are all
labeled by the movie, like the movie he was in or whatever. And this was the makeup tin from The Revenge of Colossus. And he puts on the Revenge of Colossus makeup.
He just rubs a little
bit
on his hand.
Takes a little out, rubs it on his hand, and just gets jacked. He rubs a little on his hand. He gets like taller, and his chest builds out. He becomes a strong man, and he's actually very strong. So this makeup doesn't change your appearance; it changes your physical makeup into a new thing. He becomes like this super strong, like bodybuilder guy, but it's still just Billy Crystal with a bunch of padding under an orange sweater. It's just not effective because he goes back to the fucking Brian Denny's bar, right? And he walks right in. He walks right to the back.
He pretends to be his own big brother, basically.
But what's funny is as he's walking in, all these women are like, "Oh, who's this guy?" It's Billy Crystal.
Yeah, it's still Billy Crystal's face.
Head. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, not buying this. But he goes back there and he's like, "You owe my little brother money." And he beats up one of the thugs. He snaps his telephone in half. He takes $300. He goes, "This is for my brother. This is for his pants or whatever because his pants got eaten. And this is for his jacket, whatever." He takes $300 from Brian Denny.
Yeah.
Brian Denny tries to say, "Hey, like, come work for me. Like, you're a hard man or whatever." And he's like, "Nah, I don't think so. You don't want to mess with me. I gotta tell you." Oh, it's like, "What happens next?" He goes like, "You don't want to know."
Yeah, and then he grabs Brian Denny's hand and like breaks it.
I was still like, you hear like cracking, like he's just shattering his hand. And he leaves. And they're like, "Do you want us to go after him, boss?" And he's like, "No, not right now. We'll get him later, or whatever." So he goes back. They show up the next day at Billy Crystal's at Pete's or whatever his name is. Patty. No one cares. They show up at Billy Crystal's fucking apartment looking for you. He's like, "Where's your brother?" And you go, "Oh, he works at the dock or whatever." Here's where I'm confused. He goes back. He goes to the old lady to like be like, "You got to take this makeup case back." But like, are you gonna? Why? I don't understand.
Yeah, no negative consequences he's experienced. So far.
Yes, they've shown back up, but like,
then they're
just
like,
put the fucking Colossus makeup on and kick the shit out of him. I don't understand.
Right. And also, they don't
beat him and kill you. They're gonna get your brother. They're not say shit about you.
He doesn't even threaten him. Then saying like, if we don't find him, we're coming back here. He goes, "We'll find him today, tomorrow.
Yeah.
We'll find him."
Yeah.
Okay, see ya.
I guess go find that imaginary man who doesn't exist.
Yeah, right.
It's very weird. But he freaks out and he goes, he's like, "You don't understand. They're gonna kill me or whatever." He goes, well, that's later. He goes back to the old lady and turns out she's died.
Last night.
That last night she died, and he sees the fucking Revenge of Colossus poster. There's a big muscle guy on it. Yeah. And he's like, oh, like, whoa, okay.
Oh, is this what you don't understand? Because I didn't understand it either.
So he leaves the makeup, and he's like, whatever. He drops it and runs away, right? He leaves the makeup in the apartment. He goes back to his apartment. He opens up his suitcase, and the makeup box is back.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so the makeup it's not chemical. It's magic. It's magic, right? Because she said, like, oh, he could have been a chemist. And I was like, oh, this is like some sort of chemical reaction, steroid, makeup, something.
Yeah.
No, it's magic. It is full on magic.
But
also, is fine. I'm okay with magic.
Did you see what was in the old lady's house, though?
I saw the poster.
Right.
And then what?
But did you see what was on the poster? It was okay. So
it was kind of Billy Crystal's face.
Yeah, it was like Billy Crystal's face.
I thought so too. I wasn't 100% sure, but it did kind of look like Billy Crystal.
And I don't know what that's supposed to mean.
I don't know what that's supposed to mean either. But he comes back and he's like yelling at the makeup case. Because one of the bottles unscrews itself.
Yeah, the makeup case has been opening itself.
It just opens itself up. One of the bottles unscrews itself, and he's like, "Don't you understand? They're going to kill me." What? No, they're not. They're going after your imaginary brother. But whatever.
Right.
He goes, all right, have it your way. And he takes out the makeup bottle that has unscrewed itself, and it's called, the movie written on it is The Lady's Fortune. And I was like, oh, is he going to turn him into a woman so he can, like, escape? This whole time, as soon as I saw the makeup kit.
I'm a pretty lady.
As soon as I saw the makeup kit, I was like, oh, this is just an excuse for him to put on blackface and do that jazz man character that he fucking has been doing for 30 years. But no, it doesn't turn him into a lady. We cut to Brian Denny at a poker game, and they go, oh, there's somebody here. There's a high roller. He's got a bunch of money. And in walks Billy Crystal in a white tuxedo and an eye patch.
Yes.
And, like, I guess his skin's, like, a little tanner or something.
A little
bit.
Hair
But
is slick back
they
a little.
don't recognize him at all.
He looks like a rich guy who is trying to fuck one of the Venture brothers. It's the most cartoon of a Bond villain.
He should have had like a long cigarette holder. He's just a mess. But apparently this is a movie about a gambler because he sits down at this poker game and just wins wins a bunch of money. Now, here's the thing. He wins $1,000, right? At the end of the day, because what he does is buy-in's $100, every buy-in's $200, raises $100. It's a high stakes game. It's also 5-card stud, which is just not a game.
No,
it's just flipping cards and seeing what happens.
Yeah.
There's no poker involved. But basically, we cut back. He's been cleaning up. We see one of the muscle guys walks out with another bottle of scotch, and he's like, "Oh, that guy's cleaning up in there, or whatever." And he's like, all right, I'll see your 1,000 and I'll raise you 7,200. That's 8,200.
He's real cocky about it.
In
a way that, like, an evil rich guy with an eye patch would not be, I would think.
And everybody folds. So he only wins $1,000. He's like, I see your $1,000 and I raise you this much. Everybody folds, so he just wins $1,000.
Well, that
hand, I guess.
Because he already had 7,200.
So he must have raised the rest. Because he only had the 300 going in, right? Or are we to believe that the magic gave it, like, the makeup also gave him money? Because he walks in with, like, this purse with cash in it that he didn't have before.
I don't know where that came from, where his entry fee
I'm guessing it's $300 that he took from them. I'm assuming that's what we're supposed to believe. It's never really explained.
Right.
But he walks in, so he gets all the money, and Brian Denny's like, "What, did you have it?" And he's like, I don't know, whatever. And then Brian Denny flips it over, and he didn't. He just bluffed him. It's like nothing. And I was like, yeah, but he still won. Like that's still a fair
poker,
and square.
yeah.
That's just exactly poker.
Yep.
And then dumbass Billy Crystal goes like, by the way, I heard my friend owes you some money, and peels off $300 and leaves it on the table. Yeah. Why would you possibly? The whole point is you're in disguise. The whole point of this thing is this makeup makes you like they don't know who you are.
Yeah, and
so just take the fucking money and leave. Why would you implicate the real you in this fucking
He even
game?
says his own name. He's like, this is for Patty's debts.
It's so fucking dumb.
These guys who look like Patty keep coming.
Taking our money.
Can't figure out what's happening.
So they show up the next day at his apartment as he's getting ready to leave for he goes and buys a plane ticket, and he's like, did I say tourist? I mean first class or whatever. Which I like that what is now like economy or coach used to be
tourist class.
So he's going to leave, but the mob shows up. They want he's like, where's all the money? Like, why? But they still don't know that was him. So why do they think he has all this money?
Right.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Do they think that's this Venture Brothers guy just walked over to Patty's and like, here's what I want.
Yeah, it's yours now. I'll be back on my steamer ship or whatever the fuck it is.
Gets on a penny farthing.
So there's like a little bit of a tussle. And Billy Crystal is thrown off his fire escape into a dumpster, which is in the opening. So the other thing that happens, the opening of all these episodes has like a little montage of what's going to happen in the upcoming episode, and that is in the opening montage. And I was like, well, don't show me that.
Yeah, right before that, Billy Crystal says they're going to kill me, and then you see Billy Crystal thrown off of a balcony. They're going to kill me. No.
So they look down. This was also a poor choice on these gangsters' behalf. They see him in the dumpster, and they're like, well, if he's not dead, I'm going to kill him. And then they go back inside and leave that way.
Right.
Let's go down the fire escape. You're on the fire escape. They come out and he's gone.
Well, it's not a fire. We can't use that.
They come out. Yeah, exactly. It's not regulation. They come back. They come out.
Rules.
And he's gone. And they're like, where'd he go? They can't find him. And the one guy's like, you stay here. I'm going to check the street. And he runs around the corner. And then he comes back around the corner like he's getting beat up, but there's nobody there. And he's like, he's getting hit. He's getting hit. He gets knocked out. Then the other guy sees this. He also gets knocked out by something invisible. You see the makeup case. So you see something. You see the airplane tickets come out of his clothes. His clothes are like laying on the ground. The makeup case floats up and starts to leave. And they wake up and they see this and they're like, oh, "What's happening?" Obviously, we've been knocked out. We're groggy.
Yeah.
It pans back, and the last tin of makeup is Mr. Invisible, which I also love that they clearly couldn't have the rights to use the name the Invisible Man. So it's Mr. Invisible. And,
which, like, as soon as I saw them getting punched by an invisible guy, I go, an Invisible Man movie.
Yeah, clearly.
But they pan back.
Slow
reveal. Yeah. Oh, my God! He played an invisible guy!
Not only that, I love... What's your plan, dude? What you currently have is a plane ticket, a makeup kit, you are invisible, and you have no clothes. You're going to the airport like this? How are you going to get on? Let's say I don't know, like, what's your plan when you get to the airport? You're not going to be able to fly like that.
Maybe he's going to sneak back up to his apartment.
But he leaves. He leaves with the ticket. You're just walking away. Like, at some point, either that makeup's going to wear off. Whatever it is, you don't have. You didn't bring a suitcase. You only brought your makeup
That's
kit.
True. Yeah. I'm opening the makeup tin from the movie The Clothed Man.
He's just covered in jackets.
I'm wearing the makeup from Too Many Coats.
That sounds like a movie from the 30s, by the way. Just it's like a real Charlie Chaplin type, like this on the poster with the coats on. I kind of like this episode too. I thought this, like, as far as like a whole episode, the two stories was like the most fun. The first, like the short story, I thought was really like the little twist of the fake obituary. I thought was good, and then this was like a dumb story that I was like, it wasn't long enough to be boring. Watching Billy Crystal be an idiot was fun. Like I enjoyed this
stuff. Like was happening. It was a kinetic episode. I do wish that I do wish that the shorter episodes had been at the end. I think I liked that pacing a little better.
For sure. Anything you want to plug?
When's this come out?
It'll be out tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
No, I'm sorry. This will be out. Yeah, today's Wednesday. It'll be out tomorrow.
Okay. At the Velveeta Room on December 13th, Avery Moore and I are having our annual Christmas show. Woo-hoo! It is called Avery and Adam Present a Christmas Banger. It is at 11 o'clock at night. We're going to have some characters stand up. It's going to be fun.
You should definitely do it. It's always a blast. The Sting is next Wednesday, so come out to that. There'll be a guest host. Christopher Hill is filling in for me because I will be at Spiderhouse Ballroom doing a headlining set there, and then I'll make my way over to the Sting. So come out to one of those. It'll be super fun. There's a bunch of stuff. I'm on a bunch of shows in December, so just check out my Twitter and Facebook to stay up to date. If you like the show, please rate, review, subscribe. All of that really helps us. Tell your friends. This show is produced by super producer Mike Moody at the wonderful Permanent Record Studios. And we'll see you next week.